The screaming started when they smelled the smoke and 18 men, Italian mobsters from the Lucchese crime family, sitting around card tables in a warehouse on 125th Street, realizing too late that every door was chained from the outside. They ran to the windows and saw him standing there in the January cold, perfectly still, hands in his coat pockets. Bumpy Johnson, the man they'd spit on, the man they'd called that word, the man they thought was too weak, too scared, too black to fight back. And now they understood. They weren't locked in with the fire. The fire was locked in with them. 1 week earlier, Antonio the Bull Moretti had slapped Bumpy Johnson across the face in front of 50 Harlem witnesses and walked away laughing. Tonight, Moretti wasn't laughing. Tonight, Moretti was screaming Bumpy's name as the flames climbed the walls. And Bumpy Johnson didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. Because some disrespect can only be answered one way, with fire. To understand what Bumpy Johnson did on that frozen January night in 1937, you need to understand what Harlem was enduring. The Depression had hit black communities harder than anywhere else. People were desperate, hungry, barely surviving. And when people are desperate, predators come hunting. The Lucchese crime family, one of New York's 5 families, saw opportunity in Harlem's suffering. They'd tried moving into the numbers racket before, tried challenging Madame Stephanie St. Clair and her enforcer, Bumpy Johnson. They'd failed. Dutch Schultz had tried the same thing and ended up dead in a New Jersey tavern. But the Lucchese family thought they had a different angle. Not the numbers. Small businesses. Street vendors. The people too poor to fight back. January 1937, the Lucchese family sent 15 soldiers into Harlem under the command of Antonio Moretti. The Bull, they called him. 6'3", 260 pounds of muscle and cruelty. Moretti had earned his reputation, breaking union strikes in Brooklyn, putting men in the hospital for asking for fair wages. Now he was bringing that same brutality to Harlem. They set up operations in an old warehouse on 125th Street near Lenox Avenue. 3 stories of brick and timber that had been sitting empty since a furniture company went bankrupt. The Lucchese family bought it for pennies, turned it into their Harlem headquarters, and from that building, they sent soldiers into the streets with a simple message: pay us or suffer. The protection racket started small. $5 a week from the fruit vendor on the corner, $10 from the barber shop, $20 from the restaurant. The business owners couldn't afford it, but they paid because the alternative was worse. Windows smashed, inventory destroyed, bones broken. Moretti's crew didn't negotiate. They demanded. And when someone couldn't pay, they made examples. A shoe repair shop owner named Thomas Williams refused to pay the $20. Said he barely made that in a month, had a family to feed. Moretti's soldiers came back that night, dragged Thomas into the street, and beat him unconscious in front of his wife and children. No one refused after that. But it wasn't just the money. It was the disrespect. The way these white mobsters walked through Harlem like they owned it. Like the people who lived there were nothing. The way they'd push black men off the sidewalk, grab black women by the arm, call everyone boy and girl regardless of age. They were occupiers, not businessmen, and everyone knew it. But what could they do? Call the police? The NYPD didn't care about Harlem. Half the cops were probably taking kickbacks from the Lucchese family anyway. Fight back? These were professional killers with guns and the backing of one of the most powerful crime families in America. So the people of Harlem did what they'd always done when they had a problem the law wouldn't fix. They went to Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy was 31 years old in 1937, already a legend. He'd been Madame St. Clair's top enforcer for 5 years, protected Harlem's numbers game from Dutch Schultz, survived prison, survived wars with rival gangs. More importantly, he'd earned something rare in the criminal world: the genuine love of his community. When Bumpy walked down Lenox Avenue, grandmothers called out to him. Children waved. Business owners nodded with real respect, because Bumpy didn't just take from Harlem, he protected it. Paid people's rent when they were short, made sure kids had food, kept the wolves at bay. But now there were new wolves, and these wolves didn't fear Bumpy's reputation. A delegation of Harlem business owners came to Small's Paradise on a Tuesday afternoon. Bumpy was at his usual table, reading the newspaper, drinking coffee. They approached hesitantly, hats in hands. "Mr. Johnson, we need your help." Bumpy set down his newspaper, listened as they explained. The Italian crew, the extortion, the beatings, the fear. He didn't interrupt, didn't react, just absorbed every detail. When they finished, Bumpy asked one question. "Where's their headquarters?" "The warehouse on 125th. "They're there every night, counting money, playing cards." Bumpy nodded slowly. "Give me 3 days. Don't pay them another cent. Tell them Bumpy Johnson said Harlem's not for sale." Word got back to Moretti within hours. One of the business owners, terrified of retaliation, told the Lucchese soldiers what Bumpy had said. Moretti laughed, actually laughed out loud. "Bumpy Johnson, the numbers runner, he thinks he can tell us what to do?" Moretti made a decision. He'd handle this publicly. Make sure everyone in Harlem understood that Bumpy Johnson's protection meant nothing against real power. He sent word to Bumpy. "Meet me at the corner of 125th and Lenox, tomorrow, noon. Come alone, or we start burning businesses." Bumpy showed up alone, didn't bring his crew, didn't bring weapons. Just walked up to the corner at noon wearing his tailored gray suit and fedora, calm as Sunday morning. Moretti was waiting with 8 of his soldiers, all of them packing. A crowd had gathered. 50 people, maybe more. Everyone in Harlem knew something was about to happen. Moretti stepped forward, smiling that predator smile. "Bumpy Johnson, finally. I've heard so much about you. The big man of Harlem, the protector." Bumpy said nothing, just stood there with his hands at his sides. Moretti circled him slowly. "You know what I think? I think you're all reputation and no substance. I think these people are too stupid to see you're just another street hustler playing dress up." The crowd tensed. Nobody talked to Bumpy Johnson like that. Nobody. Moretti leaned in close. "Here's how this works. You stay out of our business. We collect from whoever we want. You go back to your numbers game and your jazz clubs and you keep your mouth shut. And maybe we let you keep operating." Bumpy's voice was quiet, controlled. "You're making a mistake." Moretti's smile widened. "Am I?" He turned to his soldiers. "You hear that? I'm making a mistake." He turned back to Bumpy, and his hand came up fast, slapping Bumpy across the face. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The crowd gasped. Bumpy's head turned with the impact, but he didn't raise his hands, didn't fight back. Just slowly turned his head back to face Moretti. That's when Moretti said it. The word. The slur. Called Bumpy that word in front of 50 Harlem witnesses, in front of the children and grandmothers, and working men who saw Bumpy as their protector. "Listen here, Neen, R. You don't give me orders. You don't threaten me. You work for us now. All of you work for us. This is our neighborhood. We just let you live in it." Bumpy's jaw tightened. Just barely. But his voice stayed calm. "You're going to regret this." Moretti pulled out his pistol, pressed it against Bumpy's forehead. Am I? Because right now, it looks like you're the one with regrets. His 8 soldiers all drew their weapons, surrounding Bumpy. Tell you what, I'm feeling generous today, so I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to let you walk away. Let you live with everyone seeing you get slapped like a child and not do a damn thing about it. Moretti holstered his weapon, turned to the crowd. This is your protector. This is the man you trust. Look at him. He stepped back, laughing. Now go on, Bumpy. Run along, and remember, next week we're doubling the protection fees, and you're going to help us collect. Bumpy stood there for one more moment, his eyes locked on Moretti. Then he turned and walked away. The crowd parted for him, silent, shocked, heartbroken. They'd just watched their protector humiliated, disrespected, beaten without fighting back. Some of them thought Bumpy was afraid. They were wrong. Bumpy Johnson went straight to his office above Small's Paradise and spent the next 7 days planning. He didn't react with rage, didn't immediately retaliate. That's what Moretti expected, what he wanted. An excuse to escalate, to bring in more soldiers, to turn Harlem into a war zone. No, Bumpy was going to do something different, something final. He called in his most trusted men. Junie Bird, Willie Jackson, Quick Lewis, Illinois Gordon. Men who'd been with him for years. Men who'd die for him without question. Bumpy spread a map of Harlem on his desk. Here's what we're going to do. For the next week, Bumpy's crew watched the warehouse, watched the patterns. The Lucchese soldiers arrived every evening around 8, stayed until midnight, sometimes later, playing cards, counting money, drinking, celebrating their conquest of Harlem. Every Friday night, Moretti brought in the full crew, all 18 men, a celebration of the week's collections. They'd gamble, get drunk, confident in their power. The warehouse had 3 floors, but they only used the ground floor. The upper floors were empty, filled with old furniture and dust. The building had 6 exits, 3 doors, 3 fire escapes. And every Friday night, the Lucchese family locked all of them from the inside. Didn't want anyone sneaking in to rob them. They'd lock themselves in. They just didn't know Bumpy was about to lock them in permanently. Friday night. The temperature had dropped to 20 degrees. Snow was falling on Harlem, covering the streets in white silence. Bumpy and his crew approached the warehouse from different directions. Illinois. Gordon carried heavy chains and padlocks. Willie Jackson had 5 gallons of gasoline. Quick Lewis and Junie Bird had shotguns, positioned at the corners where they could see anyone approaching. Bumpy wore all black. No suit tonight. Just dark clothes and a calm, cold purpose. From inside the warehouse, he could hear them. Laughing, shouting, drunk on stolen money and false power. Moretti's voice carried through the walls. Another round. And tomorrow we double the rates again. These people got more money than they're telling us. Bumpy moved to the first door. Steel. Painted red. Locked from the inside. He wrapped the chain around the handles, pulled it tight, secured it with a padlock, moved to the second door. Chain. Lock. The third door. Chain. Lock. Illinois. Gordon went to the fire escapes, used bolt cutters to sabotage the ladder mechanisms. If someone made it to a window, the ladders would collapse under their weight. It took 15 minutes to secure every exit. 15 minutes of methodical, careful work, and the men inside never heard a thing over their own celebration. Bumpy picked up the gasoline can, started pouring it around the perimeter of the building. The smell was sharp in the cold air, chemical and final. He poured all 5 gallons, creating a ring of accelerant around the warehouse. Then Bumpy Johnson pulled out a box of matches, struck one, watched the flame dance in the darkness, and dropped it. The fire caught immediately, racing around the building in a bright orange circle. Within seconds, the flames were climbing the wooden exterior, feeding on old paint and dry timber. Inside, someone shouted, "Smoke! Fire!" The card game stopped. The laughter died. Bumpy heard chairs scraping, men running. The first one hit the front door, tried to open it. Locked, tried harder, throwing his shoulder against it. The door didn't budge. The chain held. More men at the other doors now, all of them locked, all of them secured. "We're trapped! The windows! Smash the windows!" Glass shattered as they broke through, but the fire escapes were useless. Ladders damaged, and the drop to the ground was 20 feet onto concrete. The screaming started, not the screaming of anger, the screaming of men realizing they were going to die. They saw Bumpy standing outside, perfectly still in the falling snow, watching. Moretti appeared at a broken window, his face visible through the smoke. "Bumpy! Bumpy Johnson! Let us out! Please! We're sorry! We're sorry!" Bumpy didn't respond, didn't move, just watched as the flames grew higher, hotter, consuming the building. Moretti was crying now. "Please, I have a family. I'm sorry for what I said. I'm sorry." Bumpy's voice carried through the winter night, calm and clear. "You should have thought about that before you put your hands on me. Before you disrespected my people. Before you came to Harlem, thinking we were yours to abuse." The fire was roaring now, completely engulfing the building. The screaming grew desperate, then agonized, then gradually silent. Bumpy stood there for 45 minutes. Stood there until the warehouse roof collapsed in a shower of sparks and timber. Stood there until the fire had consumed everything. 18 men. The entire Lucchese crew in Harlem. Gone. When the fire department finally arrived, there was nothing to save. Just smoldering ruins and the smell of gasoline and death. The fire chief approached Bumpy. "What happened here?" Bumpy lit a cigarette, the flame from his lighter briefly illuminating his face. "Terrible accident. They should have been more careful with their card games." The chief knew better than to ask more questions. By morning, every mobster in New York knew what had happened. Bumpy Johnson had burned 18 Lucchese soldiers alive. The most brazen, brutal retaliation in mob history. The Lucchese family bosses called an emergency meeting. Tommy Lucchese himself, the family patriarch, sat at the head of the table. "We go to war. We burn Harlem to the ground. We kill everyone connected to Bumpy Johnson." But Frank Costello, head of the Luciano family, disagreed. "No, we don't." Tommy turned to him, furious. "He killed 18 of our men, and Moretti started it. Your soldiers went into Harlem, extorted their businesses, beat their people, and publicly humiliated the one man who runs that territory. Moretti slapped him, used that word. In front of witnesses, he earned what he got." The other family bosses nodded slowly. Carlo Gambino spoke up. "Costello's right. We've tried taking Harlem before. Dutch tried. He's dead. We've tried negotiating. Bumpy won't bend. Now we know what happens when we disrespect him. He doesn't just fight back, he ends it completely." Tommy Lucchese sat back in his chair, staring at the table. "So what do you suggest? We leave Harlem alone, completely. No more extortion, no more soldiers, no more attempts to muscle in. Bumpy Johnson controls Harlem, and we accept it." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in New York organized crime history, The 5 families collectively agreed to cede an entire neighborhood. Not because they couldn't win a war, because the cost was too high. Because Bumpy Johnson had proven something terrifying. He wasn't just willing to die for Harlem, he was willing to kill for it. Completely. Without mercy. The people of Harlem heard what happened. Heard about the fire, about the locked doors, about the 18 dead mobsters. And they understood. Bumpy Johnson had avenged them. Had answered the disrespect with fire and finality. No one ever extorted a Harlem business again. No Italian mobster ever walked those streets with that same arrogance. Because everyone knew, touch Harlem, face Bumpy Johnson, and Bumpy Johnson didn't make threats. He made promises. And he kept every single one. Bumpy Johnson died 31 years later, in 1968, but that night in January 1937 became legend. The night he locked 18 men in a building and watched it burn. The night he proved respect isn't given. It's demanded. And the price of disrespect is everything. Harlem never forgot. And the mob never forgave. But they also never came back. If this story of justice, fire, and unbreakable resolve moved you, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a like if you believe some disrespect can only be answered one way. Share this with someone who needs to understand what real protection looks like. Comment below. Would you have done what Bumpy did? And turn on notifications because next, we're telling the story of how Bumpy walked into Lucky Luciano's office alone and walked out with the deal of a lifetime. Remember, in Harlem, respect wasn't requested. It was earned through fire, loyalty, and a man willing to do whatever it took to protect his people.